Welcome to KMUZ Theater Talk. I'm Ann McBride.
And I'm Ed Shopes, and we're here the first and third Fridays of the month to tell you all about what's happening in the Mid-Willamette Valley theater world.
On today's show, we'll talk with author and playwright Fiely Matias and composer Dennis Giacino about their new musical production, Zazzie Sings, which we'll preview at the Majestic Theatre in Corvallis on February 9th and 10th.
In our second interview segment, we'll talk with director Jeff Minden about a 1960s French farce coming to Keizer Homegrown Theatre called Boeing Boeing. It runs February 9th through 25th. And why don't you start us off with our Theater Talk calendar?
Playing at Albany Civic Theater through February 10th is The Great Gatsby. Check out our KMUZ Theater Talk podcast for an interview about that show with director Lorianne Schmidt and actor Robert Henry. Coming to ACT March 1st through 9th is Eclipsed, a play about the Magdalen laundries in Ireland, directed by Charlotte J. Hedrick, Professor Emerita of Theater Arts at OSU.
Children's Educational Theater, that's at cetsalem.org. Online registrations are open for CET's 5-week summer theater experience for kids ages 6 through high school. Go to cetsalem.org to secure a spot for your kiddos.
Elsinore Theater at elsinoretheater.com. For information about local events and touring shows on stage at the Elsinore, go to their website and Facebook page.
Enlightened Theatrics is at enlightenedtheatrics.org and on Facebook. And we're very sad to report that Enlightened Theatrics announced on Facebook and their website last week that due to the funding challenges that have hit regional theaters nationwide in reopening after the COVID pandemic, Executive Director Jessica Peterson and the Board of Directors have made the difficult decision for the theater to go dark for the time being. Ann and I joined the board in thanking Jessica for the energy, talent, and focus she brought during her time as Enlightened's Executive Director and the positive impact she made on the Salem community. We know that wherever she lands next, Jessica will be a great success. Here's hoping this is just a brief intermission for Enlightened Theatrics and not the final curtain.
Gallery Theater at gallerytheater.org. See how they run. Directed by Britt Block, is on the gallery stage February 9th through March 3rd. This British farce is set in a quiet vicarage where its characters rush headlong into humor and through lots of doors. It's filled with zany antics, mistaken identity, a small pack of vicars, one of whom is an escaped convict in hiding, and a sedate bishop who's shocked at all the goings on. So be ready for a laughter-filled evening.
Keizer Homegrown Theatre at keiserhomegrowntheater.org. Boeing Boeing opens at Keizer Homegrown Theatre February 9th through 25th. It's a 1960s French farce all about an American living in Paris who's engaged to 3 different flight attendants on different airlines. And it doesn't end well for poor Bernard. We'll learn more about this when we talk to director Jeff Minden later in today's program.
The Majestic Theatre is on Facebook and at majestic.org. A preview of the new musical Zazzie Sings comes to the Majestic Theatre stage in Corvallis on February 9th and 10th. Stay with us for our interview with the show's creators, Fiely Matias and Dennis Giacino, who join us later in today's episode. Majestic Readers Theatre presents The Tragedy of Antony and Cleopatra by William Shakespeare, February 24th and 25th.
Pinnacle Theatre at pinnacletheater.org. Neil Simon's Brighton Beach Memoirs, directed by Joe Dodge, continues at Pinnacle Theatre through February 3rd. Then, up next at Pinnacle is The Prom, a musical by Begulin, Martin, and Sklar. It's directed by Robert Sahlberg. And The Prom runs March 1st through 23rd. And don't forget Joe Dodge's acting workshop for actors 18 and older is at Pinnacle Theater's rehearsal studio in downtown Salem. To sign up, go to tickets.pinnacletheater.org.
The Salem Playhouse at thesalemplayhouse.com offers acting classes for both kids and adults at Keizer Homegrown Theatre and adult classes at Chemeketa Community College. To sign up, go to thesalemplayhouse.com and click on the Classes tab.
Spotlight Community Theater is at spotlightcommunitytheater.org. An adaptation of Lewis Carroll's Alice in Wonderland by Michael Vaca, directed by Shannon Rempel, plays February 8th through 18th at Spotlight. And that's followed May 9th through 19th by Much Ado Out West by Wade Bradford.
Struts and Frets Theater Company is at strutsandfretstheater.org. And coming up next at Struts and Frets is Little Women, adapted from the Louisa May Alcott classic novel by prolific playwright Kay Hamill. It runs March 28th through 30th at Dallas Event Center.
Corban University is at corban.edu/theater arts. Coming up in March, Corban will stage Sleeping Beauty, Briar Rose, based on the tales of Charles Perrault and the Brothers Grimm.
Western Oregon University at wou.edu/theater. Spring Awakening runs February 29th through March 9th at Western. This coming-of-age rock musical set in 19th century Germany tells the story of teenagers discovering their budding sexuality through a folk-infused alternative rock score. It's directed by Michael Phillips. And May 29th through June 1st, John Proctor is the Villain will be on stage at the Rice Auditorium. That's directed by Risa Fleming.
Willamette University at wutheater.com. Too Much Light Makes the Baby Go Blind. 30 plays in 60 minutes by Greg Allen, directed by Jonathan Cole. Plays February 15th through 25th at the Pelton Theater on Willamette's campus in Salem. And the audience gets to pick which plays the actors will perform each evening. And that's followed by Brian Friel's Irish family masterwork, Dancing at Lunasa, directed by Susan Coramel, April 11th through 27th.
Dallas High School on Facebook at Dallas High School Thespians and Theater. They are doing The Wizard of Oz, and it runs February 22nd through 24th. See their Facebook page for show and ticket information.
McKay High School is on Facebook at McKay Thespians, and their spring musical will be Little Shop of Horrors on stage at McKay May 10th through 18th.
McNary High School on Facebook at Ken Collins Theater. The pop musical Mamma Mia closes February 3rd, and Shakespeare's classic Twelfth Night will run at McNary High May 15th through 18th.
North Salem High School is on Facebook at NSHS Theater. Tuck Everlasting will be on stage at North April 11th through 20th. That's followed by Sense and Sensibility, which will play on May 23rd through 25th.
South Salem High School on Facebook at Saxon Drama. The Alibis plays in the Rose Theater at South High, February 29th through March 2nd. And coming March 8th and 9th is an evening of original devised works.
Sprague High School has Bye Bye Birdie on stage February 22nd through March 2nd. And Sprague will stage one act on April 11th through 20th.
Staten High School is on Facebook at Staten High School Theater. Staten High will stage the pop musical Mamma Mia, March 1st through 3rd, featuring the music of ABBA.
West Salem High School is on Facebook at West Salem Drama Department. Improva Java hits the West Salem stage on February 8th, and that's followed by Shakespeare favorite Much Ado About Nothing, playing February 29th through March 2nd.
And that wraps up our KMUZ Theater Talk calendar for plays around the Mid-Willamette Valley.
Coming up next, Ann and I talk with Fiely Matias and Dennis Giacino, the creators of Zazzie Sings, a new family musical in previews at the Majestic Theatre in Corvallis. We'll be right back with more theater talk in just a moment, so stay with us.
We're talking with Fiely Matias and Dennis Giacino about their new musical, Zazzie Sings, opening at the Majestic Theatre in Corvallis. Welcome to Theater Talk again, you guys.
Thank you, Anne. So great to be back.
Yes, thank you so much. We love both of you, and we're so excited to be talking to you again about our new show or anything, because you guys are just cool.
Well, I'm just excited about the show. Tell me about this show. It's based on a book that you wrote, Fiely?
Yes, during the pandemic, we were all kind of isolated and everything. And what Dennis and I would do, since we couldn't really go anywhere, that we would just go on these drives in the car, and Dennis would be like, "You just want to get out and just drive anywhere?" And we just drive anywhere, and we'd kind of like hole up in the car, listen to music, sing carpool karaoke with Barry Manilow songs. Like we'd like turn on yes, go ahead.
Yes, Fiely. I remember one time we took a 3-hour drive to Bend just to get fries. That's how the pandemic affected us all.
And in one of those drives, we always talk about creative ideas because that's what we do. And I just told Dennis, we were sitting very quiet, and it just came to my head about the line, "In a box on a street where two alleys meet, lived a cat who just loved to sing." It just popped into my head.
Wow.
And that's kind of where it took off. And then when I started writing the book, I said, what if this was a green cat? What if it was a completely different cat? Because that's something I could relate to about being different growing up, being Filipino, coming from the Philippines, and just culturally and everything different. I said, what if this cat was really different, and how would it feel? So I just started writing the book. My publisher, who I wrote an initial children's book, and I presented it to my publisher, and my publisher said, "Yeah, write it." So I wrote it, and they published it. And then when Dennis read the book, Dennis said to me, "Go ahead, Dennis."
I said to Fiely, I remember exactly where we were too. I read the book. We were in Salt Lake City at the time. There was a Disenchanted playing there. And so again, one of those long drives, and we drove it, over the salt flats, the Bonneville salt flats and whatnot to get there. And, I read the book, and I said to Fiely, this is our next musical. I just hear it. You read the book and it sings, and I immediately started working on music. It had been about 7 years, after Disenchanted. So I said, new musical, and Fiely jumped right in.
Well, let's talk about Disenchanted for just a moment. Zazzie Sings isn't your first rodeo, you guys. We interviewed you about the worldwide phenomenon Disenchanted, a fun and entertaining musical about princesses. Tell us a little bit about that. Give us the short story.
We seem to write, Ed, and create when we're trapped in a car or on a train, and that sounds like you can relate to this, being creative when you have no other choice, right? And whether it's a plane, whatever it is. And so we happened to be doing a show across Canada. We were on a tour with a two-man show that we had come up with. We were in Vancouver, BC, doing our show. And I said to Fiely, let's drop down into Portland. We had lived in Oregon, obviously, before, having started our theater in Corvallis in 1991. And so this was about early 2000s. And I said to Fiely, let's drop down into Portland. I have an idea, and it has something to do with princesses coming to life and telling the truth. And I said, I'll probably have it done in 3 months. So 3 months passed. And we were living in Portland, and I used to sit out on this bench in front of the art museum and just write and write. And Fiely came to me 3 months later, and he said, "Is it done? How's it going?" I said, "I have the first song." So, so little did I know that writing takes a lot longer than that. That idea of traveling and being in a car, and we came up with this idea. and we put it up at the Orlando International Fringe Festival in 2011. A year before that, we entered it into the New Jersey Playwrights Competition. Fiely said, enter it. And I said, but it's a musical. It's not a straight play. And Fiely said, doesn't matter. Just enter it anyway. And I said, okay, knowing we were going to lose because they didn't take musicals, and we won. And the show just took off like a shot. A producer came in, happened to see it at Orlando Fringe, and within a month we were in New York City working on it, developing it, just like we're doing with Zazzie now.
And now it's played to audiences around the world. I think your most current production is in Spain right now. Is that right?
Yes, it is in Spain right now, and it's like third sold out month. It's extended through March.
Wow.
And I think it's going to win Best Musical. They just had an awards thing, and it's not announced officially, but it's against shows like Phantom of the Opera, Book of Mormon, Aladdin. Madrid is kind of like Spanish Broadway.
Right.
And I think we're going to win Best Musical this year. Like our little off-Broadway show against all these Broadway shows.
Yeah.
Wow, that's fantastic.
And then also we're working on a national tour being booked here in the US for 2025.
Oh my
Wow.
goodness.
Wow, that is really, really great. I mean, your pedigree for writing hit shows is fantastic. So I'm thinking that Zazzie Sings has such a strong place in your heart, Fiely. What do you hope audiences are going to take away from this show?
I think when I wrote the book was called Ribi Didu Dada. That was the book's name, because I wanted to give it a different name because my name is so different. And in growing up, people had really a difficult time pronouncing my name. They'd make, kids would make fun of it. Teachers would be like, I don't.
My maiden name was Peck.
Right.
I heard Pecker the whole time I was in elementary school.
Yeah.
Oh,
Junior
goodness.
high.
Yeah. People, especially kids growing up, can be very mean to things that are different. And so I wanted to, because when I say the book's name, people go, how do you say it? I go, so I wanted to make sure people practice what it was to say something different, to feel something, and for that to be okay. But the heart of the book is, though you are being bullied, I think one of the answers, for me at least, was to overcome bullying and to feel insecure and to gain confidence, was to follow something that you love to do. In this case, my main character, Zazzie the cat, loves to sing. And when she's bullied about her talent, actually. But then she finds her voice, and with the help of her friends, kind of say, you know what, this is the way I sing, this is what I love to do. And I think that's what I want to teach kids, is that if you find something that you love to do, that will help you gain confidence, and gain self-esteem.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So that everyone who is in the audience realizes that they have a special talent or something, and it's okay to be different.
Yep.
This is the USA Northwest premiere of the show in Corvallis at the Majestic Theatre. Previously, back in September of last year, we did it at the Hickory Community Theater as part of the Catawba Valley Arts Festival in North Carolina. That's where Fiely's publisher is. And so they entered us in to workshop the show there. We did. It went over really well. And while we were there, Ann and Ed, we went into classrooms anywhere from kindergarten up through about 5th grade. First of all, every student had a story about bullying, and it was heartbreaking to hear that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, as we read the book, everybody started talking about afterward how, oh, I love to do this and I love to do that, and everybody thinks I'm different, and sometimes they judge me, but they got the idea that as long as I follow that interest, that passion that I have for something, and have that confidence in what I love to do, that's almost like kryptonite for bullies. They don't know how to deal with that. And that's where we really knew that the show was reaching who it needed to reach. Children and adults alike, we can all relate to that.
Right.
Boy, I wish I'd had this story when I was a kid.
You were talking about that, Ed, that we had similar backgrounds in terms of coming from foreign countries, coming from different cultures when we were very young to come to the US. I think even as adults, we can immediately go back to that place of bullying with anything, like especially
Yeah.
when I hear other people's stories, I think it stays with you, you know.
Yeah, it's instant. It just takes you right back. Exactly. And, I think audiences are going to, especially kids in audiences, are going to just really stick with the story. It's going to stick with them.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and that's why we wrote the story on several levels. Disenchanted is written for a very specific audience, sort of 15 and up, as you might imagine, having seen it. With Zazzie Sings, it really is all play in that sense, all ages, because we wrote it not only on a for families, children, whatnot, but we also wrote it for adults because we all can relate to bullying as adults. And I think, bullying just doesn't go away, it sticks. We just very much were interested in writing it on both those levels. So, and it succeeded in North Carolina, where we had the adults come up to us and say, I was just coming to bring my kids and hoping I'd get through it, another kid's show. And then they said, but I had a blast with it myself. A lot of references that were, directed at the adults, a lot of messages directed at both the adults and the children that they bring with them. So that was very important to us to write it on both of those levels.
Fiely, tell us the story about Zazzie. Give us kind of a summary of the plot.
Zazzie is a green singing cat who just loves to sing, and she performs for her friends nightly in the alley all the time. But one particular night, when she sings, the local reviewer, who is a rat named Rex, happens to pass by and interrupts and says, "You can't sing. I can't believe you think you can sing." And this critic bullies Zazzie into believing that she can't sing, and also makes all her friends believe she can't sing as well. So we kind of hint at peer pressure as well. And then there's these two gophers who come by who and say, "No, we believe in you, Zazzie, and we'd love to actually produce the show." And so they kind of help her reignite her passion for singing again. And so she goes back to singing, starts selling out, but then again, the rat comes back. But then the rat realizes, after hearing her sing and seeing what kind of feeling, what kind of the audience response, and how seeing somebody do their passion is so positive and so affirming, the rat kind of admits, saying, "Hey, you know what? I bullied you because I was bullied as a kid as well, because I wasn't able to follow." It's kind of funny because the rat says, I wasn't able to follow my passion. The rat's real passion is dance. And the rat says, "I wasn't able to dance because when I danced, people made fun of me because I did my own moves. And so I was depressed, I was lonely. So naturally, I became a critic." So, so when the rat admits that, Zazzie says, "I understand. And you know what, Rex? I want to, support you as well. Why don't you be the dancer that you've always wanted to be and be a dancer in my show?" So they create their own show together at the end, and it's a big hit, kind of thing. So even the villain gets a little redemption, because I think we as people have all been kind of victims of bullying. And at times, to be honest, we kind of sometimes are the bullies. I don't think anyone's perfect. So I wanted to create an atmosphere where everybody can be forgiven and everybody can make mistakes. But we do it in a very fun humor way, because it's really, anti-bullying are themes that are very hard things to discuss. But the way we approach it is through humor, as what we do usually.
Very much like Disenchanted, where
Yep.
we approach some really hot topics in that: racism and misogyny and whatnot, but we do it all with a layer of humor over it. Fiely and I are very much believers in sort of a spoonful of sugar.
So Fiely, aside from the line that came to you in the car, What is the reason that you chose to use animal characters in this as opposed to like the real human characters in Disenchanted?
Animals provided especially a way for the audiences to relate to the show on any level. I wanted to do animal characters since it was a kids show so that kids could relate to it easier as well. Because when we license the show and we want communities to do the show, I wanted non-traditional casting because that's what I've always wanted as a minority performer, is to be able to do any role. So I wanted people to go, oh, it's a cat. It's not a specific person. So we specifically wrote names that were gender neutral so that everybody can relate to the show, so that the show can be cast with any kind of non-traditional casting. As long as you can relate to the characters, then you can be that character. That was my goal.
It just sounds like such a positive experience. How are rehearsals going?
Great. We've you had mentioned the cast at one point when we were talking, and it's such an amazing cast. It really is sort of a local all-star Corvallis, Albany, Salem area cast, and we have folks who are like Monica Milani, who's been performing at the Portland Playhouse. We have Michael and Deborah Wren. They're the initial villains in the show.
Yes.
And it's just who make the turn for kinder by the end. And they're a hoot. We are just having a blast. Everybody's hooking into the catchy music and the humor of it and giving it their all, wouldn't you say, Fiely?
Yeah, I think what unique and special about this experience is they're helping develop a new show. And it's a show that's never been done on a national or worldwide basis. So they're coming in
so
actually
exciting.
helping us. Yeah, so exciting. So we're like going, this is how big Broadway shows like Book of Mormon or Dear Evan Hansen, I say they all have a beginning.
Right.
And you are now part of that beginning, so you should feel very proud and happy and excited. And we tell them, jump in, play, and fail. This is how we're going to find the heart of the show.
Right.
And Fiely and Dennis, have you done much rewriting during this premiere experience?
We did in North Carolina, and we are here in Oregon as well. And that's sort of the exciting part of it. We liken it to when you hear about sitcoms and the writers are on the set while they're filming and a joke doesn't go over as well with the audience, and immediately cut tape and let's rewrite 5 different jokes and see what works. We're doing that in the rehearsal process. I think even in the auditions, we were, making changes. We've made changes from North Carolina to Oregon. So as you start to sift through that, less and less changes happen. But yeah, the cast is really in for the whole idea of and having a blast with the idea that, I'm actually helping morph this show into what it's eventually going to become. And that's super exciting, I think, for everybody.
That's so exciting for an actor. We've done plays where the audience talks back and the playwright rewrites, and it's just exciting to do something new and to create. That's wonderful. I wanted to ask something about the costumes because they're all animals, right?
Yes.
Actually, what we're going for, as you'll see in this development version of this, is that we're focusing on the characters and music and the script. So we've approached it directorially as a very minimal version of the show so that we can really focus on developing the script, music, and characters. So in terms of costume, they'll be wearing T-shirts that with my graphic designs from the book, and we'll be using just basic face paint for the animals. And I've directed it physically so that they physically hint at the characters with a physical approach of the animal characters. So they're not walking around like human. There's slight physicalizations that make them be like the gopher or the cat or the pigeons. So it's that kind of approach so that people can see bare bones, the show itself, and see what it works.
Right. And the actors approach it as as the character with some mannerisms.
Correct. With a physical, yes, with some mannerisms. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been watching Fiely direct the show, and it's very yes, it's certainly minimal in a development or workshop production, but it's also very clever. You know, it almost invites the audience to create in their own minds. You know, what do these twin gophers? They're twin gophers wearing twin loafers. What do these gophers look like? If I pictured them, I can give you a story. When we did our first production of it, I was back running the soundboard, as we do. So I was working with the sound guy back there, and he had brought his grandson along who had seen the show the night before. So I said to the grandson, oh, probably second or third grade, and I said to the grandson, who's your favorite character? And he said, he thought for a second, and he said, it's the Gophers. I said, would you like to meet them? And so, you know, we took the grandfather and the grandson backstage, met the Gophers, gave him a book, and he followed the book during the musical. So when we got to the Gophers part, he had to flip it open, read what the Gophers were saying. And so it really is very clever and allows people, adults and children alike, to just imagine as they go through the workshop process. And Fiely's really brought that cleverness to the direction.
So you guys are living in Portland, where there's a lot of talent. Why choose the Majestic Theatre in Corvallis as the Northwest premiere of Zazzie Sings?
A couple reasons. First of all, of course, we have history in Corvallis, Oregon, great history. We started our own little theater in 1991. I remember going to the Corvallis Arts Center and saying, hey, you know, you have this little stage here and it has a piano on it. You ever think of doing theater shows here? No, was the answer. And I said, would you ever consider doing theater shows here? And it was Susan Johnson at the time who was running the art center. And she said to me, yeah, I would. What day do you want to book? And I said, oh, no, I want to book a season. You know, go big or go home, right? So with that, we booked a whole season and eventually worked our way to the Majestic stage. So it holds a really dear place in our heart, the Majestic Theater, to return there and give back to Corvallis, a show that we've created almost as a thank you to all the people who have supported us over the years. I think with that too, and this is where I'll pass off to Fiely, when we did the show in North Carolina, Stephanie Mellenbacher came to see the show. Go ahead, Fiely.
Yeah, Stephanie Long, who was an original theater member of ours in Corvallis over 30 years ago. She is our friend. She said, I want to produce it. And so I think what Dennis hinted at is Corvallis has a big heart element in our show and a big trust element in producing in Corvallis. In part of the development of any new show, you really need people you can trust who are passionate about the show. That's what Corvallis is for us, is that we can feel safe. We can trust the people we're working with, and everybody is passionate about it. And anywhere that happens, that's where you should do a show.
Yeah. And Stephanie, when she saw the show and worked on it, she did a lot of the makeup and face painting in North Carolina. And she immediately, after she saw the audience reaction to the show, which was huge, we almost sold out the entire theater. It was a standing ovation and immediate applause before the show was even over. And with that, Stephanie said, that's it. I want to produce it and I want to do it on the Majestic stage. And we were like, that's perfect. Let's go back west and let's do that next. And so, yeah, it's a really exciting turn of events. In this workshop process at the Majestic, we started with just a piano. We now have a full three-piece combo. So we have piano, bass, and drums. They're all consummate musicians creating the actual orchestrations, the actual arrangements for the show. So we shout out to them, as well as the exciting cast and producing team and the Majestic Theatre, Corvallis Parks and Rec.
Zazzie Sings is a new musical comedy. Its Pacific Northwest premiere in Workshop Productions is at the Majestic Theatre in Corvallis. Performances are February 9th and 10th. The book, music, and lyrics are by Dennis Giacino and Fiely Matias, and it's directed by Fiely. And you can get your tickets at majestic.org. Thank you guys so much, Fiely and Dennis, for coming to talk with us at KMUZ Theater Talk.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ed and Ann. We appreciate it. It's so great to talk with you both again.
Joining us today for our next interview is Jeff Minden, the director of Boeing Boeing, a French farce playing at Keizer Homegrown Theatre. So stay with us for more KMUZ Theater Talk.
We're speaking with Jeff Minden, director of Boeing Boeing, opening at the Keizer Homegrown Theatre February 9th, and it goes through the 25th. Welcome to KMUZ Theater Talk, Jeff.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Jeff, Boeing Boeing is an interesting title. What is this show about?
Yeah, so it is a farce. It's set in the mid-1960s. The central character is Bernard. He's an American architect living in Paris who is engaged to 3 different flight attendants on 3 different airlines. And since they all have different schedules, only one is home at a time and doesn't know about the other 2. So the show is about the day where everything goes wrong, and he and his friend Robert are doing everything they can to keep the ladies from running into each other.
And there's a housekeeper in this show also.
Yeah. Berta, the maid, is kind of central to Bernard keeping everything afloat. She thinks of a lot of things and is in charge of quite a bit until she gets pretty fed up at one point, and then that just adds another complication.
Plays about cads are always interesting and fun because you know they're going to get their comeuppance, and it's not going to be pretty. Now, this originally was a French farce, you said.
Yeah, correct. It was written, I believe it first performed back in 1960, and it is the most produced French farce.
So what is it that brought you to this play in this time?
I was trying to find a show that was a good mix of humor and romance and would be just kind of a light and fun way to open the season, tie it into February with Valentine's Day, add in a dash of romance, and just something that was fun and funny and just enjoyable to watch. And the first time I read the script, I couldn't stop laughing. And all throughout rehearsals, we can't stop laughing either. So it has definitely been successful in that respect.
What do you want people to take home from this? Just a good time?
Essentially, just looking for something that people can come and enjoy and just have a good time watching some funny theater.
And it all takes place in Bernard's apartment?
Correct. The script has 3 acts. We're running it as a 2-act show.
Mhm.
And so it's morning, afternoon, and evening of the same day, and it's all in the main section of Bernard's rather large apartment. As with most farces, there's a lot of doors, and this one has 7.
Whoa. I was just going to ask about the farce 3-door thing, but 7? That
Yeah.
sounds amazing.
It was a bit of a challenge figuring out where to put them all in our space, since we don't have the largest of theater space, but we've made it work. And there's a lot of, quickly timed in and outs, just missing people as they're essentially, as Bernard and Robert are trying to keep the house of cards from falling over for as long as they can.
Wow. It's like one door slam after another.
Exactly.
Where does Robert come in?
Robert is Bernard's friend from college who just shows up out of the blue to visit, and it happens to be the same day where weather complications result in all 3 of the flight attendants, or in the show they refer to them as air hostesses, since that's what they were called back in the 60s,
Mhm.
are all going to be at home at once.
And you're doing it, period, right?
Correct.
A lot has changed since the 1960s, particularly when it comes to air hostesses and society's view of women. How do you balance the comedy in the play with today's sensibility of women's issues?
Even though there were some different sensibilities back then, the way the female characters are written, they have a very commanding presence, and they're very take charge in their own respects. So they're very atypical in that they all know what they want and they're very motivated towards getting it. And I would say that all of them get the outcomes they're looking for.
That sounds very French to me because
Yes.
at least in French cinema and many other French farces, the women do play a more commanding role than you would expect for being written in the times that they were written.
Yeah, I would definitely agree that. And they're all, like I said, different in what their goals are, but they all do get the outcomes they want. Not so much for the boys.
So that averages out because there are many people who would say a comedy about three women being engaged to the same man is kind of offensive. But if the man gets his comeuppance, that's okay, right?
I would agree with that. It's definitely interesting how they go about it and some of the ideas presented in the show, both in regards to what Bernard thinks is going on, as opposed to what some of the flight attendants or air hostesses are making happen. So I would say it is not as much about Bernard's manipulation as it is Bernard not actually having a good read on the situation.
Okay. Well, and how are you fitting the set and all of the actors on that stage? Because it's quite small.
We had to play with it quite a bit, reblock things a few times, do a lot of searching around to find period furniture that fit the stage without overwhelming it and taking away all of our space. Thankfully, I had a fantastic crew assembled to help get it done. So there's a lot of angles to make doors work. I was skeptical we were going to get 7 in. I was like, how am I going to make this work in the space? But it does, and we've got room for it. So,
wow, I can't wait to see that because it's a very small stage.
It helps that we used a couple of the actual doors off of the stage into the green room and the lobby, and we've basically skinned over those to turn them into apartment doors. So that took a couple, and then the rest, although it's not the widest of stages, it is fairly deep, and so we were able to play the angles that way to get us some extra space.
That's
just the door budget must have been formidable in this show. Aside from the doors and the space limitations, what do you think has been the biggest challenge you've faced in mounting this particular farce?
It's been going together fairly well. We selected the cast all the way back in October, which seems early for a February show, but I really wanted to get scripts in hands early so that they had plenty of time to get those lines in their brains. And then that gives us more time with script out of hands to start working on all the physical gags, which is always the challenge with farce.
Right.
Farce is so crucial with timing on those jokes and bits and gags that it takes a lot of rehearsal and practice to get them down right so that the audience sees one door open as the other door closes, but they don't see actors who shouldn't see each other looking at each other on stage. It really is a lot of precision timing, and that's definitely been the challenge.
Well, I think that's the thing that separates the men from the boys, is rehearsal. In this instance, there must be so much rehearsal of lines and business.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. It's lines because the lines are funny, but then also the actions and the moments and just the lack of interaction sometimes is also what increases the humor. So a lot of work on pacing, tempo, and a lot of nuance to get as much humor as we can out of it.
Comedy's hard.
It is. It takes a lot of work, and I think sometimes that's more than people realize. They think, oh, it's funny, just go be funny. Well, there's a lot more to it than that.
Now, especially with farce.
Who are the people in your cast?
So I've got Derek White and Dustin Luna playing Bernard and Robert. Dustin, it's his first time with KHT. Derek was previously in The Odd Couple. As far as the flight attendants, I've got Mandy Thompson, Elizabeth Ming, and Emily Loberg. Mandy has done stuff with us before, as has Liz, but I think this is Emily's first show with us. And then Laura Davis will be our French maid, Berta.
Well, it sounds like a great cast.
I got very lucky when it came to audition time. One thing I'd like to note as far as performances go, we have our regular slate of 9, but we're adding a special performance on Valentine's Day, still at 7 p.m., but it's a special presentation, and it comes with appetizers before the show and dessert at intermission.
Wow.
Sounds like date night to me.
Yeah.
That's what we were thinking. I know it's a Wednesday, but if you can't make it up for the weekend or you want something just light to celebrate Valentine's Day, we thought it would be a nice halfway point.
Great.
It would definitely make for an interesting conversation after the show.
Absolutely.
With your Valentine.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, I've scheduled 2 other Valentines.
Well, it sounds like the perfect show for February. It's called Boeing Boeing. It's at Keizer Homegrown Theatre. It's written by Mark Camilletti and directed by Jeff Minden. This French farce plays February 9th through the 25th with a special performance on Valentine's Day, February 14th. With extra little goodies before and after the performance. You can get your tickets at KeizerHomegrownTheatre.org. Go see it. It's going to be a ton of fun. Thank you so much, Jeff Minden, for joining us here on KMUZ Theater Talk.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
It's time to wind up today's KMUZ Theater Talk program. Thank you for joining us. Next week at 9 a.m., you can tune in to Talking About Art with Joel Zack. KMUZ Theater Talk is a proud member of the Mid-Valley Theater Network.
KMUZ Theater Talk comes your way at 9 a.m. the first and third Friday of the month on your radio or smart speaker at 100.7 and 88.5 FM, on your favorite radio app, or streaming live at kmuz.org. You can also catch our KMUZ Theater Talk programs anytime, wherever you get your podcasts.
Ed and I will return February 16th with another brand new KMUZ Theater Talk program. Meanwhile, check out our KMUZ Theater Talk Facebook page for news and updates about live theater in the Mid-Willamette Valley.
If you haven't yet joined in to support Theater Talk and the rest of KMUZ's great community radio programs, head on over to kmuz.org right now and click the donate button at the top of the page. And thanks. Until next time,
We'll see you in the front row.